Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Tara and here on my channel, I formulate skincare products. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're still making skincare products, but I'm not gonna be the one coming up with the formulas, but instead, we're gonna be using AI to create my formulas. We're gonna be having AI create me an entire skincare routine, okay? We're gonna see how well they do. Before we get into it, today's video is sponsored by my Patreon, actually. Over on Patreon, I have content that goes back to 2018. There's so much content on there, and if you sign up for the $5 tier, you will have access to all of the past Patreon exclusive videos I've ever done, along with 2 bonus Patreon exclusive videos every single month. You also will get access to blog versions of all the recipes I share here on my YouTube channel. They include a PDF file you can download and print out, along with an Excel spreadsheet where you can change the batch size of the formula and it just automatically recalculates the recipe for you guys. There is so much content over on Patreon, so check that out if you're interested. You can always unsubscribe whenever you're ready. Thank you guys so much for listening to that sponsorship. It's my birthday, so I just wanted to do myself a little birthday gift and shout out my Patreon to you guys. So to start off our skincare routine, I think we need a face wash, right? Isn't that the first step of our skincare routine? I could do some kind of makeup remover as well, but we're gonna keep this pretty simple because we're gonna go easy on the ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and ask them to formulate a face wash for sensitive dry skin, since that's the skin type I have. Oh my gosh, this is completely different than it was yesterday. Yesterday, they wrote the formulas in percents. It looked so much more professional. So here's the face wash formula from yesterday, and as you can see, it's all written in percents. They include a preservative. They even include some vitamins. They include cocoa glucoside, which is a much more gentle surfactant as opposed to castile soap. Cocoa glucoside does have a high pH and you need to lower it. Yeah, yesterday they mentioned you need a sterilized container, the temperature you need to let it cool at, the pH it needs to be at. Why was it so much smarter yesterday than it was today? I was playing around with it for a while before I asked it to make a face wash. Like, I asked it to make a serum with hyaluronic acid and peptides and stuff. But the first time I asked it to write a formula, it gave it to me in percents automatically. So I find it really interesting that now it's giving it to me in tablespoons and cups and stuff, which definitely isn't an accurate way. Let's go ahead and ask it to change the formula to percents and ask it to use surfactants instead of castile soap. Also said, don't forget a preservative because they didn't include a preservative before, so let's see what they'll come up with. So this is looking a lot better. We have a blend of 2 different surfactants, cocamidopropylbutane and decyl glucoside. I do really like both of those surfactants. I would personally use these at lower percentages, but I'm letting them write the formula, so that's what we're gonna stick with. 10% glycerin. That's pretty high, but I'm totally okay with that. They included an oil, and there's no emulsifier. They also included an essential oil, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't like using fragrances or essential oils on my face. But I do like that they included a preservative. That's great, but that's because I told them to. I can't decide if I want to leave the formula like that and try it or ask them to include an emulsifier. We're gonna say, will the oil separate? It knows oil and water separate. But they say including cocamidopropylbutane and decyl glucoside, which are both surfactants, can help stabilize the mixture and reduce the likelihood of separation. That is true. They are right about that, but I don't know if it has the strength to emulsify that much. Okay, so they're telling me it's fine, so we're gonna stick with what they have to say. The only other thing that I'm thinking is they don't have a thickener, so I'm gonna ask them if I should include a thickener. Okay, awesome, they rewrote it. With xanthan gum! What my impressions are is I don't think ChatGPT so far would work for somebody who doesn't know how to formulate, but somebody like me who has a good base knowledge of formulating, I can sway it to get to the right answer. Yesterday, I asked it to formulate an acne-prone product, and it made a salicylic acid product, and it mentioned that you needed to adjust the pH, and I was really impressed by that, so I really expected better from it today. So that's interesting that it kind of just like restarted its brain today. So I went ahead and printed out the entire recipe they gave me, including the instructions. We're going to follow the instructions the exact way that they wrote them. Even if I know it's supposed to be done a different way, I'm doing it their way, but I will point out to you guys when I come across it. I don't have aloe vera gel, unfortunately. I do have aloe vera powder, so I will include this instead. and I'll use this at 0.1%. So I'll just take the leftover and put it in the water. So I'm going to do 0.1% aloe vera gel. So that means 4.9 will have to be added to this, which will make 29.9% distilled waters. Also, I'm just realizing I don't have Optifin Plus either, but I do have Optifin ND, and I think this is a perfect alternative. Typically, I would not add an essential oil to a face wash. Honestly, I'm not going to. I'm sorry, AI, we're not doing that. We are just gonna add that 1% into the distilled water, so now we'll have 30.9. Let me just, I feel like I don't have an eraser. This is pencil, I can just erase it. I'm gonna go ahead and add all this up just to double check to make sure it equals 100. All right, so I got it to 100. Let's see how it turns out. Sorry I had to make so many adjustments to it. In a clean mixing container, combine the cocoamidopropyl betaine, and since it calls for 30%, we're just gonna be using exactly 30 grams because we're gonna be making just a 100 gram batch, then 25 grams of decyl glucoside and xanthan gum. I always recommend combining your xanthan gum with a liquid humectant like glycerin or propanediol or propylene glycol. Mixing xanthan gum with one of those ingredients will prevent clumping. The next step, they say to mix well to disperse the xanthan gum evenly throughout the liquid ingredients. But this is a surfactant that makes bubbles and lather. So it's a horrible idea to sit there and create a bunch of agitation trying to incorporate the xanthan gum into it, because it's just gonna create a bunch of bubbles and lather. So when you are making bubbly products like a face wash, body wash, shampoo, you want to combine all your ingredients as much as possible first before adding those surfactants, because all that mixing and agitation is just going to make the formula super bubbly. Add the vegetable glycerin and almond oil to the mixture, stir well to combine. And then 8 grams of almond oil. When I first started formulating, I would always add about maybe 8%, 10% oil into face washes. And I would mix the oil in with the surfactant. So I do like how they had us add the oil in with the surfactants, because the surfactants do act a bit as a solubilizing agent. Normally, I wouldn't suggest to use as high as 8% with the surfactants. And you don't want your products to separate. That doesn't look good to the consumers. And it can, cause some stability issues with the preservative. The oil suppresses the lather, so when you add oil, it will make less lather. But I do know a lot of people like to add oil into their bubbly foaming surfactant products because it makes them more gentle. So if you want to make these foaming products more gentle without suppressing the foam by adding in oil, you can use glycerol oleate. This is a super fatting agent. So you want to look for something that's a super fatting agent, and this will make your product a lot more mild and gentle on the skin. But if you're someone who likes to use oil in your surfactant systems, the formulas work fine, they're not growing mold and bacteria, then go for it. And you'll notice surfactant-based products will turn milky like this when you add some kind of oil in them, because what's happening is it's emulsifying. So it's essentially turning white like a lotion does when you blend oil and water together. Step 4 says slowly add the distilled water while stirring continuously to ensure even mixing. So what I can do is weigh out the water separate, and now I can pour it in while mixing. Step 5, once the water is fully incorporated, add the aloe vera gel and mix thoroughly. Okay, again, I don't have aloe vera gel, so I'm gonna have to screw things up and use aloe vera powder. But personally, this is my favorite way to incorporate aloe into products, because you don't have a big giant jug of liquid that's gonna spoil faster than the powder. The powder is a lot more shelf stable. So that's why I recommend this. So I'm just doing 0.1% because this stuff you only have to use at a really small amount. I don't like the way step 6 is worded. It says, if using, add the preservative accordingly to the manufacturer's instructions. Ensure it's evenly distributed throughout the mixture. Okay, first off, actually, I do like that they say according to the manufacturer's instructions, but they say if using, no, you should use a preservative. If your product has water in it, then you need a preservative. So now we can go ahead and add in our preservative. So they recommend Optifin Plus, but I'm gonna use Optifin ND, and it has around the same usage rate. So we'll just go ahead and add in 1 gram since they suggest 1%. So normally this preservative does have a little bit of solubility issues. I've been told that if you mix it with just like something like glycerin, propanediol, or propylene glycol, it will mix into watery solutions pretty well. since this does have surfactants, which work as a solubilizer, it should mix in. Again, there's already a pretty large amount of oil, so who knows if we'll have issues. But so far, seems pretty good. Step 7, if desired, add essential oil for fragrance, mix well. That is not desired for me, so I'm gonna be skipping that. Step 8, transfer the prepared face wash into clean, sterilized bottles or container. Step 9, label the containers with the date of preparation and any relevant information. Store the face wash in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. Step 11 says before each use, shake the bottle gently to ensure all ingredients are evenly dispersed. To use, dispense a small amount of face wash onto damp hands, lather gently onto the face, and rinse thoroughly with lukewarm water. So one last thing that I don't like about this face wash formula is there is no pH adjusting mentioned. pH is super important when it comes to our skin's health. Our skin's natural pH is between 4.5 to 5.5. And this includes 25% decyl glucoside, which has a pretty high pH. So I'm going to go ahead and take the pH and see what it comes out to be before I put on my skin. If you would like to know everything about pH, how to check, adjust, lower, raise the pH, go watch my video all about pH. I'll have it linked down below. But we want something in between 4.5 to 5.5. Even if it's like 6 or 7, I'll be happy and I won't adjust it. So actually I'm pretty impressed. We'll leave that there. We won't even adjust it. And I think what actually lowered the pH in this face wash, since decyl glucoside does have a high pH, I think it might have been the aloe vera powder because that normally does lower the pH of products. It's been about 4 days since I made this face wash, and as you can see, there is some separation. You might think that that's just like some lather and foam on the top, but I can assure you all of that should have settled by now. Anytime I've ever made a face wash, body wash, or shampoo in the past, it has settled in this amount of time. So we do know this is completely settled, and that is why everything has separated. Also, if you look closely, you can see there's like a thick glob of something that has separated out and settled on the bottom. So overall, this is completely separated, which means the preservative isn't properly preserving everything, which means this is most likely going to grow bacteria, yeast, and mold pretty quickly. And every time before we go to use it, obviously make sure you shake it up. And honestly, I actually really liked the texture of it. It felt like a nice, creamy, milky facial cleanser, and those are my favorite face washes. But unfortunately, it did leave my skin feeling a bit dry. That's probably due to the higher pH. And overall, this isn't a horrible face wash. We could fix it by just taking out the oil and making sure the preservative is perfectly mixed in. So this isn't a complete fail, but a learning experience. The next thing we need after a face wash would be a toner. So let's ask it to make a toner for dry, sensitive skin. They included hyaluronic acid. They kept doing that yesterday. Every formula I asked it to make, they kept including hyaluronic acid in it. And I think it's because the first time I asked it to formulate something, I was like, can you make a serum with hyaluronic acid, peptides, and something, niacinamide? And then it just kept adding niacinamide and hyaluronic acid to everything after that. So yeah, it really latches on to the past information that you put in and includes it in the next thing that you ask it. So I'm actually a pretty big fan of this toner it made. The only complaint I have to say is the chamomile extract. That's a bit high. That's the highest recommended usage rate. And then the hyaluronic acid is a liquid because it is at 3%. So I'm thinking maybe it's a hyaluronic acid stock. I'll just tell them my hyaluronic acid is a powder and see what they have to say. Perfect. Okay, so this already looks a lot better, but we're gonna be using the instructions they give us to see how it turns out. So again, I had to make some adjustments to the toner formula. So they used aloe vera juice, 25%. I'm using aloe vera powder, 0.1%, so that automatically makes a lot of room in the formula. They mention hyaluronic acid anywhere between 0.1 to 0.5%. I'm using at 0.1, so I just crossed out that 0.5. And they said 2% Optifin ND, which is great because that's the one I have, but it's only recommended to be used at up to 1.5, not 2%. So I changed that to 1.5 as well. So I added it all up, subtract it from 100, because remember the formula needs equal 100, and that left 28.9% left of empty space. So I just made that distilled water. So I did have to change the formula a little bit. Let's go ahead and make our toner. Step 1, in a clean mixing container, combine the rose water and aloe vera juice. Again, I don't have aloe vera juice, so I'm just gonna be using 0.1% of my aloe vera powder. Step 2, add the vegetable glycerin and chamomile extract to the mixture, stir well to combine. Slowly sprinkle the hyaluronic acid powder into the mixture while stirring continuously to prevent clumping. I always recommend mixing your hyaluronic acid powder with glycerin, propylene glycol, or propanediol, because this will actually hydrate your hyaluronic acid and make it disperse in your product more evenly and not clump up. It's the same concept with the xanthan gum. So even though they suggest stirring continuously, this won't always work. Since I am using an ultra low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, it is less likely to clump up. And this is because high molecular weight hyaluronic acids will actually thicken and gel water, but the lower molecular weight of hyaluronic acid you go, it will thicken the water less. So lotioncrafter.com has a range of different hyaluronic acid powders that I recommend checking out if you want to work with hyaluronic acid. Step 4, continue stirring until the hyaluronic acid powder is fully dissolved. So at least I do consider that the powder needs to dissolve. Step 5, finally add the preservative according to the manufacturer's instructions. Ensure it's evenly distributed throughout the mixture. If you take a look here, you can see exactly what I mean by the Optifin ND not mixing in. This will happen with Optifin Plus or Optifin as well. And let's mix, see if it mixes in. It does mix in, but I can already see it separating out. So this will be scary to use on my skin. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to use it on my skin. Step 6, transfer the prepared toner into clean, sterilized bottles or containers. 7, label the containers with the date of preparation, relevant information, same thing as the face wash. Step 8 says the same thing as the face wash, store the toner in a cool, dry place, out of direct sunlight. And step 9, again, it suggests mixing the bottle before using. Step 10 explains to you how to use the toner. Apply the toner to clean skin using a cotton pad or by gently patting into the face with clean hands. Allow it to dry before applying any additional skincare products. Again, this mentions nothing of adjusting the pH. And another reason why pH is super important when it comes to making your products is the preservatives we use are only active in a specific pH level. This is the pH level Optifin ND is active in, and this is the pH that Optifin Plus is recommended to be used at. And in the face wash formula, they mention Optifin Plus, but mention nothing about keeping the pH within that range. So again, that's another lose. I don't see any ingredients in this that will raise the pH, so this might actually come out pretty evenly and we won't have to adjust the pH. We're at 3.95. Honestly, that's pretty low. I think it's really low because of the rose water. I've noticed my rose water typically makes the pH pretty low, and then also the aloe vera powder lowers the pH. This isn't too low that it'll do any damage to my skin or anything, so I'm just gonna leave it there. At first glance, this looks perfect, but if you look a little closer on the bottom, you can see that the preservative has settled and there's a big glob of it. Also underneath the date sticker, you can see 2 more small little globs. So the fact that the preservative is separated means that this isn't being protected from mold, yeast, and bacteria and is prone to spoiling pretty quickly. And the fact that we have to shake this up every time before we use it makes me worried that I might be using the preservative directly on my skin, because you want that to be diluted. You can easily save this by using Liquid Dermal Plus instead at 0.5%. And everything I mentioned before. All right, the last thing we need is a moisturizer. Them and their essential oils, they included an essential oil in every single formula that they could. All right, 15% shea butter, that is really high. 10% cocoa butter, that is super high also. And then, so 20% oil, only 5% glycerin, which is fine, that's about normal. Again, such a high percent of extract, some more oil, 5% cetyl alcohol, that's gonna be thick. 5% emulsifying wax, I'd say that's about normal. Again, such a high amount of allantoin. I guess that's what we're gonna make. All right, it adds up to 102. Again, I don't know why AI can't just do basic math. Since it adds up to 102, I'm just gonna go ahead and take out the essential oil, and that will make it 101. And then another thing, aloe vera gel. They're using it at 15%. Again, I only have aloe vera powder, so we'll need to change that to 0.1%. And then that leaves 14.9% open, which they don't even include water in this lotion. Oh wow, this is going to be really interesting to see how this turns out. Well, then we'll just have to go ahead and add water. That water will just be the rest of the percentage. All right, so now we got a formula that looks like that instead with 13.9% water. So I'll just add in the 13.9% water whenever it mentions glycerin. So this is definitely the one I'm most excited to make. Step 1, in a heat resistant container, combine shea butter, cocoa butter, jojoba oil, sweet almond oil, cetyl alcohol, and emulsifying wax. Step 2 says heat the mixture gently using a double boiler or microwave until all the ingredients are melted. Stir well to ensure everything is mixed. So to do this, you need a pan on your stovetop. Put your stovetop on about medium heat, and then fill the pan with some water, just enough to cover what's in the beaker. And you don't want too much water or the beaker will spill over. So that's probably good. I also always recommend covering it with some foil to keep the heat in it to help it melt better. All right, now step 3, we need a separate container, which we need to add the glycerin in. And remember, since I added water in this, I said I was just gonna add it when we had to add the glycerin. So we're gonna go ahead and just add the water too, which basically the water will replace the aloe vera liquid. So I'm not really against adding that in. I don't think it's a bad idea. And then the aloe vera, chamomile extract, and again, 10% is just so much. I don't recommend using this much. Oat extract, which I actually don't have. I thought I did have it, but I guess not. So I'm gonna use this marshmallow extract in place of it. And then it also mentions calendula oil, which is weird. Why are we adding the oil here? I don't have calendula oil. So instead, let's just add some apricot kernel oil at 5% in here. I don't know why we're adding an oil. Okay, so it mentions nothing about heating up this water, so we're not gonna heat it up. And the directions say slowly pour the oil and wax mixture into the water mixture. So normally here you would pour the water into oil, and this is because when the oils harden on the sides, they solidify. So you get a lot cleaner of a pour when you pour water into oil, unless the emulsifier you're using suggests otherwise. But emulsifying wax, which is the emulsifier they suggested, always recommends mixing water, pouring the water into the oil. And they're also mentioning nothing about an immersion blender. And then step 5 says allow the mixture to cool slightly, then add the panthenol. So it doesn't mention anything about waiting until 100 degrees Fahrenheit to add in the panthenol or allantoin, which it should. Well, actually, allantoin isn't heat sensitive. We should have added the allantoin in with the watery ingredients and heated it up, but they didn't tell us to do that. And they're suggesting 2% allantoin. I normally use it at 0.5%, and I have to heat it to get it to dissolve. So this is probably gonna be a gritty moisturizer. So I guess I'll give it like 5 minutes to cool. That's cooled slightly, I guess. And we're doing 3% of the panthenol. Normally I use this at about 2, but it's fine to use at 3. And normally what I would recommend is mixing this panthenol with like 5% distilled water. Make sure you add the 5% distilled water in the formula and then pour it in after this has reached 100 degrees Fahrenheit, because this is too hot for the DL panthenol. It'll probably destabilize, and I don't know how well it'll dissolve. Kind of looks like it dissolved. And then the allantoin, they recommend 2%, and that is really high. Probably not going to dissolve, but we'll find out. This is also when you would add the essential oil, but we're skipping that. And then it says stir well, add the preservative. And again, you should have to wait until this gets to like 100 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever temperature your preservative is active in. And then the rest is just transfer the lotion to a clean, sterilized bottle or container, label it, date it, store in cool, dry place, just everything mentioned before. It also says to shake the bottle before use, which is funny. They're just like copying and pasting from recipes prior, because we won't be able to shake this. This will probably be thickened. You always want to take the pH at room temperature. And the natural pH is 4.39. It looks like it's still going up. This is a pH I'm totally comfortable using it at. Your skin's natural pH is between 4.5 and 5.5. It's almost 4.5, so I'm comfortable using that, and I've used products with lower pH levels. This is totally fine to use. Again, at first glance, it looks like everything's mixed together. I was a little worried as soon as I dipped the scoop in there was gonna be a glob of water on the bottom, separated out, but everything seemed to be mixed together. Did look like it was starting to curdle, which tells me the emulsion is already starting to separate, and this isn't gonna hold up for long. Also, as soon as I started rubbing this into my skin, I felt all of the grittiness from the allantoin, the DL panthenol not being dissolved, and it did burn my skin a little bit. It also felt pretty heavy and greasy on my skin. Some people might like that, but I did not like that for a face product. And overall, I don't really have a simple way to save this product. We just need way less oil. We need to formulate it in the proper way, everything I mentioned before. So would I recommend AI to formulators? Yes and no. I think for a beginner, it could be really dangerous because it tells you a lot of inaccurate information, but then like presents it in a way that they know exactly what they're talking about. But then again, at the same time, they do also have a lot of good information. But I've only noticed that they have good information when there's like a backlog of me talking to it, kind of giving it better information. Like, for example, me mentioning like, hey, isn't that going to separate? You know, stuff like that. Then they remember, oh yeah, we need emulsifiers when we're blending oil and water together. As a beginner, I just honestly would probably recommend to stay away from AI unless you're trying to ask it simple questions like, is chamomile extract heat sensitive? Because they seem to know enough of that to like add that in the cool down phase. But then again, I don't know, I still just wouldn't really trust it. So anytime you do use it as a tool, you need to cross-check the information, do maybe a quick Google search or something and see if it's actually accurate. But then again, even using Google, sometimes that pulls up inaccurate information. So I don't know, overall, I would just stay away from it if you're a beginner. As somebody that's more intermediate or advanced, I think it's a great tool. I think it's fun to use. Us people who have more experience with formulating, I think we know when it's being wrong and when it's not. So yeah, overall, just be wary of it because it's not always right. But again, it can be a really fun tool to use. So yeah, I don't know. It's a gray area, I guess, overall. It's like, I don't know, use it if you want. Just make sure you have a base foundation knowledge of formulating. And especially when it comes to like more advanced stuff, it might not know what to do. Don't let it be your source of all your information. Thank you guys so much for joining me in today's video. I hope you guys subscribe and check out all my other videos I have on my channel. I have so much content about formulating. My Formulating for Beginner series is perfect for those of you who are a beginner, just starting out. Go watch that series. I'll have it linked down below, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Later. Also, don't forget to go over and check out my Patreon, where I post 2 exclusive videos every single month. So there are a ton of videos you can go over there and binge watch for only $5 a month. And for $10 a month, you can get a small business shout out, or maybe you have a YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and shout everybody out. Nature's Farm Girl, thank you so much. Let's Blend, thank you. HempyGirl.com. ShopLevies.com or ShopLevi's.com. 7th House and Oak on Etsy, at Black Petal Beauty on Instagram, Owl and Lily on Etsy, ZayelaMoore.com, I hope I said that right, EmbraceBeautyEssentials.com, LegendaryBathandBody.com, at Stardust Bath and Body on Instagram, AstariApothecary.com, Reviga Cosmetics here on YouTube, naturesmagicllc.com, and ixorabb.com. Everybody will be linked down in my description box. Go sign up if you want a shout out, or if you just want bonus content. The shout out tier might be full. It's full pretty often because I only have so much space in the description box to link to everybody.